Pascal from the blog de l'image and welcome to this tutorial. Today we are talking about the X-rite ColorChecker video card. The ColorChecker video card is adapted to facilitate the color grading of your movies. We need to use the 12.5 of DaVinci Resolve to find the reference chart on the color match tool. In this tutorial, we will see how to use it together. There are two models of ColorChecker video. The first model is the standard side of the ColorChecker Classic. As you can see, the black patches shine easily. I talk about this because it is an important point that caused a problem for me at the beginning of my test. If you use a camera with a flat image profile, you might not see the black patches shine. In this case, your image cannot be used to make an accurate color correction. It's because the black is not correctly exposed. The second model is the ColorChecker Passport video. It's the same size as the ColorChecker Passport that is dedicated to photography. This is a small card. I want to remind you that the color card is not adapted to correct a white balance mistake in post-production. If you work with raw files in video or photo, it doesn't matter if you apply a good white balance. In this case, you can change it in post-production. But if you work with an image developed in the camera, you don't have the possibility to make an adjustment. The color match tool of Resolve will try to solve any white balance mistakes or incorrect exposure. But in this case, the results will not be optimal and the outcome will be poor color quality. What you need is the right image card with the correct exposure and the appropriate white balance. Your ColorChecker card has the tools for that. With the standard side, you turn the card and you have a gray to make a white balance. With the Passport model, you also have it. You find it here in the small size. For exposure, it's the same. You need a good exposure, but you have the tool for that on the ColorChecker card to help you. With these three bands, you can find the right exposure by using your camera's histogram. It's a good solution if you don't have the light meters. With the standard model, you have four bands to help you find your exposure. A common mistake is when you place your card on the color foreground. You must be careful with the color reflection on your patches by the color foreground, because you generate some color deviation. In this case, you need to shoot your card in the air or apply a neutral gray in front of your ColorChecker to prevent any reflection of the color from your foreground. Again, be careful with the shiny black patches. And now, let's look at how to use the ColorChecker video with the color match tool of Resolve. Now we are on the DaVinci Resolve to check together how to use the ColorChecker video card with the color match tool. I remind you, you need the 12.5 version of DaVinci Resolve to see the reference files of the ColorChecker video. Previously, I made a little editing on Resolve where I placed several video sequences shot with different cameras. We have images shot with the Canon 5D, a Blackmagic Pocket, a C300, an iPhone 6s, and a Blackmagic Cinema camera in the Cinema DNG format to show how we use the color match tool with the raw files. At the beginning of my timeline, I placed different clips from each camera with the ColorChecker images to use it to calculate the color correction with the Resolve's color match tool. I remind you that each camera has its own image rendering and you need to calculate a color correction for each camera. If you change the shooting conditions, you must reshoot and incorporate ColorChecker to calculate a new color correction. We go to the Color tab of Resolve and we start with the 5D sequence shot. Now, I found the Color Chart tool in the Viewer pop-up menu to pull up the overlay. Now I go to the Color Match tool. To start, I check that I have selected the right chart. If you choose the wrong chart, you don't only have an incorrect overlay in the viewer, but you'll generate a wrong color correction. I scroll the wheel on my mouse to magnify the image to be more accurate for positioning my reference. By pressing the mouse wheel, I can properly place the image in the viewer. Be careful, each reference mark must be placed in the middle of its color patch. I display a scope by right-clicking on the viewer and selecting Show Scopes. This will help you improve color correction choices. To record this tutorial, I only use one display, but I strongly recommend to use 2 displays or more if you can. It is more comfortable and efficient. I have positioned my overlay and selected the right chart. Now I can click on the Match button. If you don't play the movie, you can use the qualifier. You right-click on the viewer and select Show Picker RGB Value. If necessary, this will allow you to use the color temp to change the value of the used color temperature. The gray patches must be neutral. The RGB values must be the same or very close. When we manually adjust the target color balance, we are able to neutralize the RGB colors and any color deviation. You will also be able to see if the correction applied by the color match is pertinent. Here the image has a low blue value, therefore the image has too much yellow. We can recalculate the correction to improve the result. Attention, do not apply several successive color corrections. You must undo the first correction before applying the next one. You have 2 choices to reset your correction. If you choose the first option, the Reset Match configuration, you will lose the overlay positioning and you will need to replace it. By choosing the second option, the Reset Applied Match, you keep your overlay positioning and you only reset the color correction. Let's try 6800 Kelvin. I click on Match and now I check to see if my result is better. You can see that it is already much better. Now let's try 6900 Kelvin. I press Match, and now we have a satisfactory result. Now that I have applied the appropriate correction, I create a serial node. I put my image in full screen, and now I adjust the densities for the high and low lights. As you can see, the 3 small white patches are found on the scope to be used for adjustments. I use the Color Wheels tool to make my corrections. Now, I only have to create a new serial node to apply the saturation. This will change our perception of densities. On Resolve, there are several ways to apply the saturation, and I will show you 3. The first, which isn't my favorite, is to use the saturation tool. I double-click to reset. The second is more popular. You decrease the luma and increase the channels. In this way, we elevate the 3 color channels, which boost the saturation. But the method I prefer to use is the RGB mixer, and I put all the channels at their maximum level. Of course, it is too saturated here. By using the key tool, I put the key output gain at 0. This cancels the action, and now you can adjust by gradually increasing the saturation with more flexibility. The method used to apply the saturation is a personal choice. Now that the saturation is applied, I go back to the second node to change the density values a little bit. Once you have the correct result, you right-click and you select Grab Still. You enter the legend to recall which type of camera you have created this correction for. Here, it's for the Canon 5D Mark II. I'm going to the second video sequence. It's the ProRes 422 HQ, and it's the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera footage. I will again be careful to select the correct shot. It's the most common mistake. I'm going to position my overlay. I use the mouse wheel to magnify. I'm placing my image in the center of the viewer. Here we are on the pocket sequence and I shot the patches in film mode. Do not select rate 709 at the source gamma, you have to choose the Blackmagic design film, and I press on the match button. Again, I check the result of my color correction with the qualifier. It's good, so I will create a serial node for density. It's not bad. Here, we see that the image is more beautiful than the one shot with the 5D. It's time for me to create my serial node for the saturation, and I chose the method I prefer to apply. I like contrasting images. I will increase the contrast of the image. Now I create a grab still and I label it BMPCC. And I go to the next sequence. The third camera is a Canon C300. I select the right shot and I position my overlay. I stay for the source gamma in Rec 709 and I click on Match. We can see we have desaturated the colors, but that's okay because we will apply the saturation afterwards. Even if the image is desaturated, the result is still very good. I create a new serial node again. I put the image in full screen to better evaluate the color correction. I apply corrections for the densities. The file is shot on a Canon log format to obtain the most dynamic image with the C300. To evaluate the densities, I apply the saturation. The saturation will change our perception of the density values that will be applied. I use the key tool to obtain a satisfying result, and I will return to the second node to change the density values. Here, it is interesting to place a small curve to increase the contrast between the two nodes. and change my densities again. When I'm satisfied, I create a grab still and I label it C300 before moving on to the next camera sequence. Here we see the image is contrasting and very saturated. These images are shot with an iPhone 6s. It is interesting to be able to mix sequences from different cameras on your timeline. Of course, we won't get the same image quality. The camera's capacity is important, but with this tool, you facilitate the color matching for the different video sequences. It's a good base for primary color grading before you apply a more complex color correction if you want. Once again, I chose the right shot. I quickly adapt the overlay and I increase the size of the image with the mouse wheel to precisely check the positioning. And I put the image in full screen. I chose Rec 709 at the color gamma and I press the button Match before evaluating the color correction with the qualifier. I enlarge the image and I see that I need more blue. I reset the setting and try with 6900 Kelvin color temp to see if it is better. It's much better. I create a second serial node and I put the image in full screen. On the waveform, you can see that I don't have the same flexibility for the color correction. My image already covers values ranging from highlights to shadows. I create a serial node for the saturation and I apply it. I use the key tool to control the degree of the corrections. I go back to the second node and I modify the setting. Here we can see that I like a bit of warm colors compared to the other cameras, but it is simple to fix. I go to the gamma control in the color wheels tool and I push my cursor in the direction of the yellow. I slightly retouch the saturation adjustment and I create my grab still. I name it iPhone 6s and I pass on the DNG file. Here we are on a RAW file. For the RAW, there are two ways to work. Always pay attention to the setting in the camera RAW tool. If you have the Rec 709 default setting, in this case, you need to use the source gamma Rec 709 in the color match tool. Or if you have the Blackmagic design film for the space color in the camera RAW, in this case, you will need to select the Blackmagic design film for the source gamma in the color match. For this example, I use the Blackmagic film for the color space and I take the qualifier to check my color temp adjustment as well as the tint. Here, the setting is good and I go on the color match tool. I get the overlay from the pop-up menu. I position it quickly and I enlarge it to see it better. I carefully select my shot. Because my color space is Blackmagic film in camera RAW, I select the same for the source gamma. I press the match button and I check with the qualifier. Now I create a sail node and I brighten my image, which is too dark, by using the Color Wheels tool. Now I create a new node to apply the saturation. Here, there is too much saturation and I regulate the level with the key tools to obtain a satisfactory adjustment. I return to the second node. This is also an advantage of working with Resolve node structure, to have the flexibility to modify any part of our color correction independently. To help you remember what corrections you apply in each node, you can name it by right-clicking on the node and selecting Change Label. You can enter a name. Here I name it Satu for saturation. Here I apply the label. Oops, I forgot to validate. And voila. Here I can enter the CC for color correction. While I return to my correction, maybe the image is too saturated here. I reduce the saturation a bit. I create my grab still and I name it Blackmagic Cinema Camera. Here we have a grab still for all the cameras, and now it is simple to apply corrections for all of our sequences. I start with the DNG file. With the Mac, I press the Command key on the keyboard to select the other video sequences shot with the same camera. Now I select the right grab still. I right-click and select Apply Grade, and voila! As you can see, we now have a very quick primary color grading. I go to the second sequence, the Apple ProRes of the Blackmagic Pocket. With the Command key, I select the sequences from the same camera. I'm looking for the grab still for the Pocket and I apply the color correction. It works well. Now I see I have a little problem. The image is too dark. The light on the objects is less illuminated in this sequence, so I brighten my image a little with the color wheels. Like that, it looks good. Now these are the images of the iPhone 6s. Do I have another? Yes, this one. I go on the grab still of the iPhone and I apply the correction. MPEG 2, it is the C300 file. Apply grade, that's it. What did I forget? Oh yeah, the 5D Mark II. And voila! This is my first tutorial in English. If you want some others, please encourage me by leaving a comment. If you like this tutorial, please share and subscribe. See you again, and thank you.